What's going on, everybody? McRae Live is back. What does it all mean? I'll talk about that in a second here. It is Friday, February the 24th, 2023, 2:08 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, episode 204. For a lot of you who are thinking, what is this? I don't understand this. What is McRae Live? I have no idea if that is. It's just you doing what you normally do. Like, I just don't get it. So let me just talk about this before we jump into the topic. So McRae Live was something I started doing in January of 2020. I was doing it 3 days a week. I think it was Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at about 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it was great. I did it for about a year and a half, did 203 episodes, and but things began to get a bit busier for me, and it was difficult to kind of manage and keep up and make sure I had the right topics and that kind of stuff. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to take a step back for a bit and just kind of let things sort of, breathe and not be so scheduled. I was finding it hard to kind of keep that schedule with the way things were working. So, but at the moment, what I want to do is I want to I still do the live shows and all that kind of stuff. But I want to bring McRae Live back, but it might not be in the same way as before, like, every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. I mean, it literally was like that for, 18 months, which was great. With the exception, of course, sometimes I had to move something, but I want to be able to sort of bring it back so there is at least a consistent show every week. Where we talk movies and horror and all that kind of stuff. And full transparency, of course, we have It's Me, Billy Chapter 2, the Indiegogo campaign launching on May the 1st. So yes, I am bringing it back for that reason as well. We got to keep it out there. We have to be able to keep this chapter 2 at the forefront of your mind, at the forefront of everybody who tunes in, because we're looking to raise a lot of money. And so now, will McRae Live be 3 days a week? Not likely. It may be once a week, maybe on a Friday morning or a Friday afternoon. I'm not sure yet. Does that mean I won't be jumping on to do impromptu Q&As? Not at all. But in terms of like actual topics, and then jumping into a Q&A, I'm going to reserve for McRae Live. I will jump on my channel at other times and do like impromptu, like Sunday Q&A or something like that. But there's no specific topic. It's just an all Q&A kind of thing. Those things will still happen from time to time. But to have like a topic and then jump into the Q&A, I want to get back to the McRae Lives and have that. And then, of course, like I said, this weekend, tomorrow we are heading up to the house in Elmont, Ontario for our first location scout for It's Me, Billy Chapter 2. The Indiegogo campaign starts getting built beginning next week. And of course, it launches on May the 1st. So there's a lot of things that are going to be happening between now and May the 1st in regards to that. So we will be talking about it a lot. We will be pushing it a lot because we have to. If we don't do it, nobody will. So we have to do it. So McRae Live is, now that doesn't mean that every McRae Live we're going to be talking about It's Me, Billy Chapter 2. I just mean that I want to use McRae Live and that designated show a week, at least one a week, that designated show a week, to be able to talk about a topic, right? Whether that is It's Me, Billy Chapter 2, or whether it's today's topic, which is Steven Spielberg getting ready to do a horror movie, or whether it's, something Halloween related or Friday the 13th related or whatever. The McRae Live shows will be those shows that are dedicated to topic and then Q&A. So I just wanted to kind of, and yes, a fair bit of shows in the next little bit will obviously, when there's stuff to talk about, will be about It's Me, Billy Chapter 2. We're very excited about it. The script is done. As I've said, things are moving in a really positive direction, a very exciting direction. And, but we just need to raise the funds. Don't know how much yet because we need to do the budget breakdown. Of course, that's one of the reasons why we are visiting the house tomorrow. So, and so if you follow me on social media, you'll see our posts tomorrow as well. So, McRae Live episode 204. Here we are. We are back again. I would like to do a McRae, at least one McRae Live a week. We'll see how it goes. I might be able to expand that. I might have to expand it, in the lead up to the Indiegogo campaign for Billy Chapter 2. Don't know yet. We'll see. But here we are. So today's topic: is Steven Spielberg getting ready to shoot a horror film? This was interesting. I saw this. This was posted today from Bloody Disgusting. And this comes to us from John Squires over at Bloody Disgusting. And of course, the headline is, "Let's not get our hopes up, but Steven Spielberg just hinted at a return to scary cinema." This is interesting. At least I find it interesting. Let's see here. It says, watching Steven Spielberg accept the honorary Golden Bear at the Berlin International Film Festival this week, one thing was crystal clear. He's not hanging up the camera anytime soon. Spielberg is once again back in the Academy Awards picture with his deeply personal new movie, The Fabelmans. But what's next for one of the greatest filmmakers of all time? During his acceptance speech at Berlin, Spielberg brought up his early horror works, including Duel and Jaws, a couple of times, at one point teasing a potential return to the genre. Quote, "I feel a little alarmed to be told I've lived a lifetime because I'm not finished. I want to keep working." End quote. Spielberg made it clear during his speech, quote, "I want to keep learning and discovering and scaring the shit out of myself and sometimes the shit out of you." Spielberg continued, quote, "I got to get back to some of those earlier, scarier movies, but that's another story for later on." Ooh, interesting. "As long as there's joy in it for me, and as long as my audience can find joy and other human values in my films, I'm reluctant to ever say that's a wrap." The 76-year-old filmmaker, of course, has a long history with the horror genre, producing classics including Poltergeist, Gremlins, Twilight Zone, the movie, and Arachnophobia. But it's been many years since Spielberg has directed a horror movie of his own, with War of the Worlds 2005 bringing him back to the genre over 10 years after the original Jurassic Park. Again, that's sci-fi horror. Jurassic Park's, it's more of a thriller, not really horror. I mean, it's a matter of semantics, but we can throw that around. Could we someday see another return to the horror for Steven Spielberg before he calls his career a wrap? We're not getting our hopes up, but it's certainly not out of the question at this time. So really interesting stuff. I knew that he was accepting the Golden Bear Award, but I had no idea that he had made that statement. So, folks, look, I mean, Spielberg is not known primarily for his horror movies, obviously. And when we say horror movies, I mean, again, I know that Duel. When I think of horror movie, I don't think of Duel. When I think of horror movie, I don't think of Close Encounters. That one and War of the Worlds. I think the closest he has to a horror movie is probably Jaws. But even Jaws, I know people classify it as a horror, and it certainly has horror elements for sure. I don't think it's a horror movie. Do you know what I mean? But I understand why people say that. It certainly is a thriller, absolutely. And I certainly understand why somebody wants to call it a horror movie. Jaws is a horror movie. Okay, fair. I can accept that. But of course, Spielberg is so diverse. I mean, he's done comedy, he's done action adventure, he's done, horror thriller, he's done drama, science fiction. I mean, his catalog is so iconic and so classic. I would love to see it. I would love to see Spielberg go back to I would like to see Spielberg do a movie like Shutter Island. I want to see like, I want to see like Spielberg do a psychological thriller. That's what I want to see. In the same vein as like a Shutter Island. I don't mean the same concept and the same, premise. I just mean like it's a psychological thriller. It's taken very seriously. It's not hokey. It's not like a psychological thriller light. Oh, because it's Spielberg. No. It's fucking full on scary fucking shit. That if you didn't know, you'd be like, what is this, a Fincher film or something? Do you know what I mean? That's what I'm talking. Now, obviously it has to be Spielberg, but I just mean it doesn't necessarily have those classic, like it takes itself very seriously. Where you watch it, like if I didn't know that Shutter Island was a Scorsese film, me personally, I wouldn't watch it and go, oh, this is totally a Scorsese film. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't think that, right? That's what I'm talking about. Like, oh, fuck, Spielberg directed that? Oh, shit, okay, wow, holy shit. That's what I'm talking about. I would love to see that. Totally, 100%. Because Spielberg he's great with characters. He's great with, the raw sort of drama and emotion that you need to become emotionally attached to the character or characters. So I don't know if he's going to. I know that he was there was talk, and I think it's still in early development, that he was going to, that he's in early development on a remake of Bullet, but with Bradley Cooper. I heard something about that a few months ago, but apparently now it's kind of like, I thought it was further along than it actually is. I thought they were like, moving into production this year, which they still could do, but I haven't heard anything more about it. And when I did some digging, apparently it's still sort of in early development. So, Spielberg, if you're watching, he's not watching, but if he ever did, do a horror movie, do a psychological thriller, like a real fucking psychological horror movie, that's genuinely scary, that can compete with the best of them. And I have no doubt that he could do it. Of course he could do it. He absolutely could do it. And I would love to see that. That's what I would love to see, because we haven't had that. Yes, we've had Jaws. Yes, we've had Duel. Yes, we've had War of the Worlds. And yes, but I mean like taking it that one step further into that territory of real intense psychological, or make a horror, or make not a slasher movie, but make like a supernatural horror movie, like The Conjuring. Something like that. Totally. Do it. Why not? It's something he's never done before. Now, obviously, he has to feel comfortable with the material. He has to feel that it is material that he can do and do justice to. Not everybody can do everything, even the great Spielberg. So he has to feel, although he is very diverse, he has to look at the material, and of course he would know this, but he's got to look at the material and go, you know what, this is something, A, I'm really excited about. B, I would love to do this. And C, I feel that I can absolutely fucking nail this, right? So he's got to feel that, but whether that's like a Conjuring type movie, or even if it's not even like, it's not even a psychological thriller with a big ensemble like Shutter Island, even if it's more self-contained, like a Hush. Do you know what I mean? Where maybe it's about this old man who's, I always use this as an example, but it's a horror movie about maybe this family or this guy, who goes up to this, like a Shining, like do like a Shining type of horror movie, which is a psychological horror movie, but that kind of thing, maybe there's isolation and there's like a cabin in the woods somewhere, or this big sort of, I don't know, this family's up there and weird shit begins to happen, but it's Spielberg, man, and he brings that Spielberg sensibilities and that Spielbergism to the picture, and it's really good. Like you watch it, like, fuck, this is really good and really intense, not light, I mean like actually intense. Actually intense. He could go there. Of course he could. He had fucking hearts being ripped out of people's chests. He could go there. I would love to see that. 100%. So I don't know if it's going to happen, you know, but I thought that was an interesting article from John Squires over at Bloody Disgusting, you know, because I was like, oh, and he didn't just hit, like, yeah, maybe he, if we go back to the other screen here, I mean, when you scroll down and you see, like when you see something like this here, you see, I want to keep learning and discovering and scaring the shit out of myself and sometimes the shit out of you. Well, that could be taken a few different ways, right? But then it's this here that really sort of seals it. It's like, yeah, go do it, man. I got to get back to some of those earlier, scarier movies, but that's another story for later on. Well, that could be anything. That could be Duel, that could be Jaws, that could be Close Encounters. When he says scarier, right, we have to make it clear that he doesn't necessarily mean horror, right? He doesn't necessarily mean, you know, Jaws, you know, it could be, you know, thematically, like in terms of the themes. I mean, Schindler's List was very scary, right? Saving Private Ryan is very scary, but they're not horror movies. Do you know what I mean? So he doesn't specifically say horror movies. Even Close Encounters of the Third Kind is scary from a certain perspective, right? You know, and then of course, you know, it's not. But so it depends on what he means. He could mean sort of more of the themes of the bigger picture and what it all sort of kind of entails. But I would love to see that. I would love to see, yes, a horror movie, not necessarily in the themes and sort of the bigger world kind of picture like a Ryan or a Schindler's List, but something, you know, scarier. Yes, Jurassic Park has scary moments, but it's family-friendly scary, right? I'm not talking about family-friendly scary. I'm talking about horror movie, right? You know, rated R. That's what I'm talking about. You know, not PG-13, rated R horror movie. Not necessarily because of blood and guts, you know, but just because of the intensity of the movie, right? Intense imagery, intense themes. You know, maybe there's a couple of F-bombs. You know, that's what I'm talking about. You can have no blood and still have an R, you know, rated film. So, yeah, I would love to see it. I would love to see him flex those muscles, you know, because he's got to do what he's, you know, has to do, but he's done his biopics. He's done his, you know, his sort of semi-autobiographical movie in The Fabelmans. He's done his West Side Story. He got back to his sort of adventure sci-fi roots with Ready Player One, which I absolutely loved. I'd love to see him do more, you know, of those movies. Not necessarily like in the series, but I mean, you know, adventure, you know, like I'd love to see 80s Spielberg, you know, it'd be so cool. But count me in, man. If he's going to do a horror movie, that's something that I would be totally down for. And again, John Squires says, you know, we can't get our hopes up because he recognizes that he's not saying that, you know, nowhere did he say horror. He just said scary, right? So that could mean a number of things. It could be semantics, but it could be he could have chosen that word specifically. Because even like, you know, from a certain perspective, Empire of the Sun is scary, right? You know, the thought of this boy being orphaned during the war and all that kind of stuff. So it depends on what he's talking about, but I think it's cool. And I would love to see it. Folks, if you're watching after the fact, comment below and let me know your thoughts. Would you love to see a Steven Spielberg directed psychological horror movie? Would you love to see a Steven Spielberg directed horror movie? You know, in the vein of like The Conjuring, Insidious, Shutter Island, like, I mean, actual horror movie. You know what I'm talking about? Like R rating, bloody disgustings all over it, like a fat kid on cake. Can you say that now? I guess not. But anyway, I'm 43, so, you know, shoot me. Yeah, like, you know what I'm talking about? I think it would be really cool, you know, to see that. I would love to see it because it's something he's never done. He's done, yes, like I said, he's done Jaws, and he's done Duel, but I'm talking about that extra step. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. And he hasn't done that yet. He hasn't gone there yet. I would love to see him go there. That would be cool, man. That would be cool. All right, let's jump over to the Q&A and see what all of you are saying, and whether or not you have any questions about this. We can talk about this or anything else you guys want to talk about now. That's the good thing about the Q&A, is that obviously I always encourage, if you have any questions about the main topic, to ask them and keep the conversation going, of course, but we can open it up to everything here. It's the same sort of as I was always doing with past Q&As. Again, if you're new to my channel and you're not familiar with McRae Live, I have... As you can see, this is episode 204. I've actually done 203 of these. There is a playlist on my channel that you can check out, but I stopped doing them in August of 2021 and took about a year and a half. I did them for about a year and a half and then took about a year and a half break. And we're getting back to doing these McRae Lives, hopefully on a regular basis, with a set topic and then a Q&A. As we lead up to It's Me, Billy, Chapter 2 here in the Indiegogo campaign. So, again, that doesn't mean I'm going to stop doing the impromptu Q&As where it's nothing but, a Q&A on like a, Sunday afternoon or something. I'm still going to do those, but I want to get back to doing this a little bit more regularly, as much as I can. Anyway, Josh McKenna sends in a super chat of $9.99. Thank you, Josh, and says, random question. Do you ever prefer running in the morning or at night? Also, what is your favorite line of dialogue you wrote for Sam in It's Me, Billy, Chapter 1? The first part, do I prefer running? I prefer running at night, although lately I've been running in the later afternoons, but I prefer running at night because it all depends. It all depends. If it's really like I run on a path that's close to where I live, so it can be really busy, and I don't know. I just don't like people. I just don't like people. No. I started running at night when I was a teenager because I liked being elusive. I like sort of the privacy of it. I don't have to worry about people and, all that kind of dogs, all that kind of stuff. So I just really like running at night. It's just me and the nighttime and the crickets and my thoughts. But I do run during the day. I've been running more during the day now than I think I ever have in my life. But I prefer night. And my favorite line of dialogue that we wrote for It's Me, Billy, Chapter 1 for Sam, I would say, again, nothing. I would say that I really don't have a favorite line, but I do like how the scene on the porch played out between Emma and Sam. I do like how that played out, and how it was because we executed it, and it's a very important scene because you get to discover more about sort of what's been going on. Now, again, Bruce and I are not the kind to spoon feed you and lay it out on a silver platter. We want you to watch and we want you to think. And so, yeah, I think we did a really good job in that scene. Because it's a conversation between Emma and Sam, and I think it flowed well, and some of the things she was saying about her mother and her grandmother. I don't have it's not like a favorite piece of dialogue. I just think the scene played very well, and I think the actresses were on point and nuanced and believable. It felt real, believable, which, they're professional actors. I wouldn't expect anything less, but I was very happy with how the scene turned out. I was also very happy with the dining room scene. Again, I don't really have necessarily a favorite line, although maybe I do. I just have to go back and think. I haven't really thought about this. But I do like the scene overall, again, how it plays out, the back and forth, the chemistry between the three leads, very natural, very organic, just something that quite like. Now, in It's Me, Billy Chapter 2, there are some lines that I can point to and say, I really like that line. I can't tell you what that is. You'll have to wait until we do the movie. But I can certainly say there's a few lines in Chapter 2 that I will, like actual lines that I will be able to point to and say, I love that line. That's a good line. But in Chapter 1, I don't know. It's more just kind of the total package of the moment. So I feel that way about the dining room and the porch scene. I'd have to go back. I haven't watched it in a while. I'd have to go back and watch it and see if there's a specific line that I really like. Yeah. I'd have to go back and watch it. But those two moments, I think, were really, like, in terms of the chemistry and the back and forth between the characters, was really natural and really organic, and I think it played really well on screen. Modern Peasant says a Spielberg film would be interesting for sure, but I don't know if he has the mind for it to make it a classic. I don't know, Modern Peasants. He seems like such a joyful, happy person, if that makes sense. Well, let's not forget, he ripped hearts out of people in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I know what you're saying, but this is Steven Spielberg. Do I think he could go there? Oh, he could go there. He absolutely could. I think, and he said this somewhere in some interview, he said that, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom was a movie that I think prevented, he said this somewhere, after Temple of Doom, he made a conscious choice to not go that dark ever again. Who knows where he would have gone if he had continued to go darker with other films. He could go there. It's all in the writing, and he rarely writes his own films anyway. So, not that he never has, but it's usually written or adapted by somebody else. And not that he couldn't. He's fine. But if it's based on a book, or if it's a really great horror, he could do it. He absolutely could do it. But to your point, I don't want to see horror light. Like Jurassic Park's not a horror movie, And I know people say Jaws is, and like I said, I get that, I accept that, I understand that. You walk into the video store in 1995, where are you going to find Jaws? You're going to find it in the horror section. I get that. But it's a thriller drama. You know what I mean? It's not like horror. It's not like, The Conjuring horror or The Exorcist. Like, you know what I'm saying, right? So I would like to see that. I'd like to see a full, like, both feet into the horror genre, where there's no question it's a horror movie. There's no other elements to it. It's not a horror comedy. It's not, horror sci-fi. No, it's horror. You know what I'm saying? It's like Hereditary, or like I said, The Conjuring. Or Shutter Island. I mean, again, that's, it will no doubt probably have a subgenre attached to it, like psychological horror or something. But I'd love to see it, man. I really would. Andrew Stevens, one of my great mods, sends in a very generous super chat. Thank you, Andrew, of $20, and says, you guys better be ready for IMB2 campaign. Almost time to go hard into the paint. Let's do it. I hope so, man. I hope so. Well, you know what? Everybody's financial situation is different, and I totally understand and respect that. We understand and respect that. But like I said, if you can't donate, as I've said many times, that, always keep in mind that a lot of the times, campaigns are realized because a lot of people come in at a lower price point. Right? Now, if you have deep pockets and you can afford, a big perk or something like that, then that's great. And obviously we would encourage that. But listen, I have 28,000 subscribers. If even just 1,000 subscribers, even just 1,000, right? Just 1,000 bought a Blu-ray. We'd probably be looking at, probably about $50,000. Do you know what I'm saying? Right? You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things where, or close to that anyway, right? It's easier said than done, right? But a lot of the times that's how it's done, right? You don't always have to throw that long bomb into the end zone. Sometimes it's just 5 yards, 5 yards, 10 yards, 5 yards, 10 yards, 5 yards, 10 yards, 5 yards, a pass here. You run the ball here, you run the ball there, you run the ball here, 5 yards, 10 yards. And then before you know it, you keep getting these first downs and now it's like, first and goal. Right? It's like, how the hell did this happen? You know what I'm saying? Because you took in stages. Throwing the long bombs are great if you can do it, but it doesn't have to get done that way. So a lot of the times, these campaigns are fulfilled because all these people come out at a low price point. And then it's like, holy shit. Holy shit, right? So I believe we can do it. I believe we can do it. We have to do it. If we don't do it, there won't be any, there won't be a movie, unfortunately, right? So we have to do it. We have to do it. And I believe we can. As I've said many times, I have confidence in this community for sure. All right, I got all the super chats, right? I got all the super chats. Let's see what else you guys are saying here. Squanda Film, Steve Merlo says, even though I don't really consider Jaws to be a horror film, it still has my favorite jump scare of all time. Ben Gardner's head scene is iconic. Yes. I'm with you. It's hard to, I understand why people say horror. It's just when I hear horror movie, Jaws doesn't come to my head. It has horror elements for sure. I think that's what frustrates me about Netflix. Although this is not really the same thing because I do understand why you would Jaws is a horror movie. Okay, yeah, I could accept that. I could accept it. But it's one of the things that frustrates me about Netflix so much. And the only thing I can think of as the reason why they do this is to make their catalog seem more diverse than it actually is, or to pad it with more of the mainstream film. I hate when I scroll the Netflix catalog and I see the same movie in 14 different sections. I'm like, I'm sorry, but and I've said this before, just because something has a funny moment in it doesn't mean it's a comedy. Just because something has a horror moment or an element doesn't mean it's a horror movie. You know what I'm saying? Just because it has, that doesn't mean all of a sudden it's a drama. It frustrates me so much. I mean, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is in the family section. I get why, but it's also an action adventure. It's also in God. It's like, no, stop doing that. It bugs the fuck out of me. It pisses me off. It pisses me off, I don't know. I just, I wouldn't put even though it's a horror comedy. Well, no, that I understand. That's too far. But you know what I mean, right? You know what I mean? I've talked about this before on the channel. It's so frustrating, and I see that and I'm like, why is this in the comedy section? It's not a comedy. Who's doing this? Fuck, it's annoying. It really is. What frustrates me about this stuff is that I like clearly defined rules. Clearly defined things. I'm not saying you can't break the rules, you can't stretch them, but the second, and this goes for anything in life, the second nothing, everything and anything, you can do everything and anything, there's no meaning to anything anymore, right? So what is a drama? I don't know. What the hell's a drama when it can be in 15 different sections? It doesn't mean, I hate that shit. I hate that shit so much. It's like, no, this is a horror movie. This is a horror movie. Put Halloween in the horror section, but it's got some action. It's not a fucking action movie. Put it in, you know what I'm saying? It's like Die Hard. Die Hard. I'm almost positive I saw Die Hard in the comedy section. It's not a comedy. Get it? It's not. But it's got some funny line. I don't give a frog's fat ass. It's not a comedy. It's an action movie. Put it in the it should only be in the action section. If I go to Netflix and I want to find Die Hard, I shouldn't be able to find it in the fucking, comedy section or family section. You know what I'm saying? It's an action movie. Put it in the action section. I hate that shit. Maybe I'm just you're just a fucking old school, Dave. It's not how it is anymore. It's like, yeah, okay, fine. I guess it's not how, but then nothing means anything anymore. There's just no meaning to anything anymore when everything can mean everything. You know what I'm saying? It's like, stop it. I hate that shit. And maybe it's just me, but it's one of my get off my lawn things that I just can't stand. Lordy. A very generous super chat comes in from Jonathan Grant. Hey, Jonathan, what's going on? Sends in 20 pounds. Says, hi, Dave. Hope you were well. I'm doing all right. I had to put my dog Molly down last month. Oh, I'm very sorry to hear that, Jonathan. She was 12 and had a tumor in her kidneys. It's really hard being here without her. She was my best friend. She was a Ridgeback mixed retriever, 12 years. Well, my condolences to you. I'm very sorry to hear that. It's never easy to lose a pet. I mean, they do become part of your family. They are part of your family, and it can get it's tough. It is really tough. Veda, my cat, Veda is 9. And now cats generally live longer than dogs, depending on the dog. I'm hoping I can have another 10 years with her, 18, 19. But once cats hit 13 to 15, I mean, they're living on borrowed time. I mean, that, when you look up the average age of a, domesticated cat, I mean, it is sort of in that space. Now, a lot of domesticated cats will live to like 17, 18, 19 because they're indoor, they're indoor cats. So they're not out there, disease, fights, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully I have another 10 years with her, but I hear you. I mean, every year I'm like, oh, you're 9 already? Oh man, God damn it. Why can't our furry friends live to like 80? I don't know, but yet parrots and tortoises live to like 80. It's like, I mean, if you get a parrot, it's going to outlive you. But cats and dogs, nope. God damn it. I'm very sorry to hear that, man. But you will be okay. Just cherish the time you had. You know what I mean? And, you don't need to get, another animal right now. I know that, sometimes you need a break and you need sort of that time to mourn and to feel okay, that it's okay to get another animal. And you will in time, and it's not disrespecting the memory of Molly. It's not disrespecting the memory of Molly. But you will again, and you'll love another animal again. But it's different too, right? That's the thing too, is that each animal has their own unique personalities. So, yeah. Oh man, I hear you. Evil Alex says Jaws is the most horror film of his films he did. That is true. For me, it totally is, but I can understand if you think not. But what you think of Poltergeist? It's kind of his film. What do you think? Yeah, Evil. So this is an area of contention. You have, think piece cinephiles, or you have cinephiles online that will defend Tobe Hooper to the max. And that, no, it's Tobe Hooper's film. He directed all the way through. Spielberg had nothing to fucking do with it. Obviously, he wrote the story, and we know that. And he was a producer on it, and we know that. And we know he was on set a lot. But no, it was Tobe Hooper. Spielberg even wrote a letter sort of defending Tobe Hooper back in the day, signing it, saying, even if the rumors were true, Spielberg is not the kind of person to be like, yeah, it's fucking my movie. I mean, he's not going to do that anyway, right? Now there was, I believe it was a camera assistant or one of the crew members came out years later and did say that, listen, I mean, no disrespect to Tobe Hooper. He did direct the movie. Yes, of course, it's not like he wasn't there at all and he wasn't talking with the actors or anything like that. But he said, but Spielberg was there a lot. Because at that time, I think he was in the middle of also shooting E.T., I believe. And I think they were shooting it at the same studio, if I'm not mistaken, or at least very close. And originally, Spielberg wanted to direct Poltergeist. He actually wanted to, and then there was a reason that prevented him from doing it. This gentleman said that, Spielberg was there, and he had a heavy hand in the vision of the execution of a lot of things. Now, of course, people have come out saying, no, that's not true. There's a constant back and forth, right? And like I said, you do have very big defenders, especially in the horror community. You have a lot of big defenders who take it very personally, okay? Who will defend Tobe Hooper like it's nobody's business. And they will say, and there's been articles that have been written about why it is Tobe Hooper and why it is his movie and only his movie. And no, Spielberg did not do what a lot of these people said he did. It is Tobe Hooper's movie. You fucking hear me? Tobe Hooper directed it. Enough of this. Enough of this. You will see a lot of think pieces online defending this to the core. 100%. Here's my issue. I think the truth is in the middle. I do not believe that it is black and white. And the reason I say that, and I mean no disrespect to Tobe Hooper, rest in peace. I mean no disrespect when I say this. But when you look at Tobe Hooper's catalog of films, he has never again, ever in his career, made a movie that felt like Poltergeist. He never achieved the same level of success ever again. I mean, he goes from Poltergeist to Texas Chainsaw 2. I think anyway, right? He directed 2? I think he did. When you watch Poltergeist, it feels like a Spielberg movie. It looks like a Spielberg movie. It sounds like a Spielberg movie. It tastes like a Spielberg movie. Does that mean Spielberg had a hand in it like a lot? No, it doesn't mean that. I wasn't there. But at the very least, it is circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial. When you look at Tobe Hooper's other films, none of them come close to even feeling anything like Poltergeist. In terms of quality, in terms of execution, in terms of how the characters were handled, nothing. He never again, when you have a gigantic studio box office success like Poltergeist, again, I say this with a grain of salt because these things are not black and white. But that should have been the beginning of something real special for Tobe Hooper, and it wasn't. I think the truth is in the middle. I'm not here saying, because we live in a world where there is no nuance anymore, right? You have people saying, Spielberg directed Poltergeist. No. Spielberg didn't direct Poltergeist. Okay, Tobe Hooper directed Poltergeist. But how much influence did Spielberg have on the picture beyond just his producing role? That's the question. And according to somebody who worked on the movie, who was on set, said quite a bit. Does that mean that Hooper wasn't calling action? Or, well, actually, generally speaking, the director can call action, but a lot of times, your first AC will as well. But does that mean that Hooper was not calling action and he's off in the corner going, I want to direct? No, of course not. That's not what I mean. Okay, that's not. But you have to speak like this. You have to preface. I know there are some people that may be, watching going, Dave, why are you? You have to do that. Start a YouTube channel. Start talking about shit and watch how many people put words in your mouth or, misconstrue what you say. You're like, I'm not saying that at all. I didn't say that, right? Because we live in a very black and white world where there's no nuance. So you have to be very careful with what you say. You have to. So I'm not saying that Hooper didn't direct Poltergeist, but there has never been a Hooper film before or since that comes even close to Poltergeist. The success, the feel, the look, ironically, it's a gigantic anomaly in Tobe Hooper's filmography. It stands out as he directed Poltergeist? Because you look at his other films, you're like, what happened? Do you know what I'm saying? Now, this is my opinion. The Tobe Hooper defenders and cinephiles are probably very angry. Fair enough. But there is Spielberg's style, his directing sensibilities are all over that movie, all over that film. Does that mean he directed it? No. But in my opinion, he had heavy influence on that movie in terms of the structure and the execution of that film. Now, he would never say that. He's not going to throw Tobe Hooper under the bus. It's not that Hooper wasn't directing. Even this guy that was on set said, yeah, he was there. He did direct. But Spielberg was there a lot, talking to Tobe Hooper, talking to the actors. Almost like, why is my producer talking to the... You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying that it's got Spielberg's fingerprints all over it. Is that... Like, if Spielberg wasn't attached to Poltergeist, if he didn't produce it, he didn't write it, it wasn't even his movie. It wasn't even his movie. He was never on set. Why would he be on set? It's not his fucking movie. He's going off doing E.T. He wouldn't... It's like, why would Spielberg be on the set of The Conjuring? He has nothing to do with it. It's like, imagine that kind of thing, right? It's not his movie, didn't write it, wasn't on set, wasn't there. He was off doing his own thing. And it still wound up feeling like that, then I'd be like, okay, well, interesting. I wonder what, okay, maybe it is all Toby, but is it a coincidence that it feels, smells, looks, tastes like a Spielberg movie and it was written and produced by him? Like, is that a coincidence? Like, and then every other Tobe Hooper film doesn't feel anything like Poltergeist in style, in the dynamics of the way that Hooper directs and builds characters and the relationship. Nothing. There's nothing. Is it a coincidence? Maybe. But I think there's more to it. I think there is more. I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. But I think a lot of horror fans especially get their knickers in a twist because it feels like it's insulting Tobe Hooper, rest in peace, kind of thing, right? It's like, no. We can talk about this maturely and objectively, right? We're not insulting Tobe. We're talking about this, we're talking about what we see, and what's been out there. And even, like I said, even one of the crew members came forward and said Spielberg, he was there a lot, more so than he probably should have been, basically, right? So I think the truth lies somewhere in the middle. Tobe Hooper directed it. He got the credit. He absolutely was talking to Greg T. Nelson and the actors, and he was directing it. But to say that Spielberg did not have a heavy influence on the style, the look, the feel, and the execution of that movie, I think it's absurd. I just, if Hooper had gone on to direct other successful studio films like Poltergeist, okay, and had a similar vibe, or you saw the growth of his style, like he goes, he does Texas Chainsaw, he does, Salem's Lot, and then, and a couple of things, and then he comes into Poltergeist. It's like, maybe this is the evolution of his style. He's growing as a filmmaker, he's maturing, but that didn't happen. He goes back and he does Texas Chainsaw 2. It's like, what? I just don't get it. So, I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. I think Spielberg, his style, his suggestions, his sensibilities heavily influenced that film. I believe that 100%. Like I said, if Tobe had gone on to do other films like that without Spielberg, well, that's a different story. But he never did. It's an anomaly. And it's ironic. And I hate to say that, but it is an anomaly in Tobe Hooper's filmography. It stands out as, wow. Strange. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, that's how I feel about it. Now, again, I'm not saying Hooper didn't direct it. I'm just saying, there's big influence there. You know what I mean? So we just need to keep that in mind. That's how I feel about it. But I know there are a lot of people that don't feel that way. Aaron Click says, I agree that it has a Spielberg feel, but that's a different argument than saying Hooper didn't direct it. That's where I have a problem. Those are two different arguments. Well, I agree with you. And that's where it comes, that's where, the lack of nuance comes down, right? But I do not believe, like I said, I think the truth is in the middle. I think the other side of the coin is not true either. No, Tobe Hooper directed it and Spielberg had nothing. No way, man. No way. Yes, Hooper directed it, but you can bet your fucking balls, man, that his influence was all over that. Suggestions, notes, phone calls. And when he was on set, he's fucking talking to the actors. There's tons of photos of him behind the camera, looking through the viewfinder. He's a producer. What is he doing? You know what I'm saying? Not that he can't do that, and if the director's okay with that, whatever. I'm just saying that his influence is there. And to ignore his influence and to ignore his sensibilities, his style, and just say it's a coincidence, I think is total denial. I think people are afraid to say that because they're afraid that it's going to make Tobe Hooper look bad. And it's like, no, it's just the reality. This is just the reality. Come on. Anybody who walks away from Poltergeist saying, oh, it's definitely a Tobe Hooper movie. I mean, come on. I don't feel Tobe. Again, if he had done other things like it, that's different. But when you look at his filmography and you watch Poltergeist, it doesn't feel like him at all. But that doesn't mean he didn't direct it. But there's big influence there. Massive influence, in my opinion. But I just think people want to black and white it. And it's like, no, come on, man. Let's not be fucking stupid like that. Okay, did I miss any other super chats? I'm going back here. I don't think I did. Jonathan Grant was the last one. Okay, good. Just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. If you're just tuning in now and you're like, hey, McRae Live, what's going on? And just to recap, I'm working on bringing McRae Live back on a regular basis. Not necessarily what I was doing before, where it was every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern. But I do want to bring it back because we are moving towards the Indiegogo campaign for It's Me Billy Chapter 2. And I'm going to try and do McRae Live at least once a week, maybe 2 times a week if I have something really juicy to talk about. But I want my McRae Lives to be topic focused, and then we move to the Q&A. That doesn't mean I'm going to stop doing just impromptu Q&As where it's like 2 hours of just Q&A. I'll still do those, but specific topic, and I will still be uploading pre-recorded videos as well. But in terms of live streams where there's topics, I want to kind of have it as McRae Lives. And we'll see where we go. I don't want to bite off more than I can chew, but I want to kind of get this back a little bit because we're going to need it as we move towards our Indiegogo campaign. So that's in case you're wondering, and maybe you're new and you're like, McRae Live, is this just another thing that Dave? No, as you can see, it's episode 204. So I have 200 episodes or 203 episodes that you can go and check out from 2020 and 2021 if you want to do that. Let me see. Dream Villain says Tobe Hooper did Salem's Lot. He did. Yeah, he did. That was a good movie. TV movie. It was good. I think they're wanting to remake it, if I'm not mistaken. Rosalia says there was a strange edit glitch in Poltergeist. Yes, there was. Yes, there was, Rosalia. You are correct, and it was when I think it goes from the kitchen, and all of a sudden, like they're on the front porch or something like that. There's a reason for that. There is a reason. I forget what it is. Maybe people in the chat know what it is. I forget what it is, but there is a distinct reason for it, and I can't remember if I thought it was kind of lame and they should have fixed it better than they did. I'm not sure, but yeah, there is a strange, like it's a jump cut. It's a jump cut, and it's an awkward, strange jump cut where it's like, okay, we're here now. All right. It's very strange. Very strange. Very strange indeed. Chester Franklin Jr. says Steven Spielberg's screenplay, story, and produced Poltergeist. Yes, he did. Indeed, he did. Let me scroll down here. Got the chat room going for I knew that was a hot topic. Daninsky says 203 episodes of greatness. Well, I wouldn't say they were 203 episodes of greatness, but they are there. Feel free to go back and check them out. Like I said, I would do 2 dudes on Monday night. Then I would do McRae Live Tuesday morning. Then I would do McRae Live on Thursday and Friday morning. It was a lot. I was doing like 4 or 5 shows a week. And it just got to be too much and I got busy and it was hard to handle. So this is my first McRae Live back. And maybe it'll be like a Friday morning at 11 a.m. thing or something like that every Friday or something. I don't know. We'll see. Or maybe there'll be some weeks where I might be able to do a few, but I don't want to lock into a schedule just yet because I'm kind of just testing the waters, testing things out, seeing how we're doing. And by the way, McRae Lives run 90 minutes. So they're not the 2-hour shows that you often see me do. I mean, maybe I'll go over if there's a specific reason to go over, but when you go back through the catalog of my McRae Live videos, you'll notice that generally everyone is about 90 minutes long. There might be a few in there that are a bit longer, but want to keep them to 90 minutes. Okay. Let me see. BDDD. Super chat from Unimpressive Media sends in €5 and says, "Hey Dave, I got an invite to go to the Irish premiere of Scream 6. Can't wait." Amazing. Well, have a great time, my man. Have a great time at the Irish premiere of Scream 6. That's cool. Yeah, Scream 6 is just around the corner. I know people are excited for it. Scream 6. Like I said the other day, it's not going to happen, but I would love for it to end on a massive cliffhanger. That would be awesome. I want to end on a cliffhanger. Don't you guys want to end on a cliffhanger? Where you don't know who Ghostface is? Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be awesome? You have no idea who Ghostface is. Oh my God, no. It's not going to happen. It's too bad. I would love it. Tara and Sam are defeated. Blood and sweat and dirt all over their faces. They're lying there defeated. I mean, they're not dead. They're just, clearly not in control. And Ghostface has the upper hand. And he's like, "I told you you've never met someone like me." It's like, who is this Ghostface? Maybe everybody's dead but Tara and Sam. Oh, dude, I fucking would love that shit. It's not going to happen, but I would love that shit. Everybody's dead. Everybody except for Tara and Sam. Kirby is dead. Saying? The Mulrooney guy, dead. All their friends, dead. Everybody else they introduced into the movie, dead. But Tara and Sam are left. Oh my God. Maybe they run away, they retreat, and maybe they're in the hospital. Maybe Sam is in the hospital in a coma, and Tara's there like, "Oh my God, oh no, what's gonna happen?" All that kind of stuff. Oh my God. And she's like, and her face is like swollen. Can you imagine seeing that shit? Oh fuck, man. Her face is like swollen. Tara. Jenna Ortega, right? I think she plays Tara. Yeah. Her face is like swollen and everything. And it's like, oh my God, like this is, you've never seen a ghost face like this before. Like that's the fucking shit I'm talking about. Take those risks. Take us to territory where we go, oh my God, what is going to happen now? Sam's in a coma. Tara, her face is swollen. She's got bandages around her head. She's in the hospital and Ghostface is still out there. And all their friends are dead. Now what? Now, obviously, in the next chapter, it's the redemption. They're going to come back, right? But you treat it like a 3-act structure, right? You have technically it's not exactly the same because you're not following. But because Scream 5 did introduce Sam and Tara, you could, if you wanted to, play Scream 6 like a second act. And the second act, traditionally in a 3-act structure, is always the darkest for our protagonists, right? At least it should be, unless you're the last Jedi. But it should be the darkest. And it doesn't end on a good note. You know what I'm saying? And it sort of ends with something like, oh my God. Now, because you know how the 3-act story structure goes, you know that in the third one is the redemption. They're going to fight back and they're going to win. And that's fine. I mean, that's fine, but I think to subvert expectations, to do something like that, where we just don't know what, like the audience is in such shock because we're so used to, oh, there we go, who's Ghostface? Oh, we get to the point in the movie now where, surprise, oh, it's so-and-so, and it's like, oh God, come on, we've seen that 5 times already. Let's do something where you think that's where it's going, and then all of a sudden something happens where like Tara gets hit in the head with like a lead pipe. Can you imagine? Imagine little Jenna Ortega. She gets hit in the head with like a lead pipe, and it's like, you think it's going to go in a traditional direction, and all of a sudden Ghostface steps out and goes boom, and then like the sound drowns out, and you just hear like that ringing sound, and everything's muffled, and you hear like, Tara, and she's like, and she falls in the ground. It's like, no. It's like, what the fuck is going on here? Holy shit, I thought we were getting to that moment. I thought we were getting to the Scooby-Doo moment where, the mask was going to come off. I was going, you damn kids. No, this is not what's happening. Holy shit, what's going on here? Oh my God, I'm uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? But the good kind, and then something happens with, with Sam. Maybe Sam is shot point blank range in the chest. It's like, oh, what is going on? What is happening here? Do you know what I'm saying? Fuck yeah. Now, again, everything's got to be properly motivated, like I always say. It cannot be shoehorned in. It has to make sense, of course. It all has to make sense. But and that comes down to the writing. But if that was to happen, it's like, what the fuck? Holy shit, what are we going to do? You know what I'm saying? And then it's like, oh my God, like, holy shit. And they don't know if, like, maybe they don't even know if Sam's going to make it or Tara's going to, and it's like, oh my God, and Ghostface is still out there. So now you have Sam and Tara in the hospital, and the doctors are like, oh my God. Everybody's dead, they're trying to get in touch with their parents back home, and Ghostface is still out there. Fuck. Who is that Ghostface? There's never been one like me before, Gail. Yeah, I hope that fucking rings true. No, it won't. It'll be just a traditional Scream. No, maybe not. Maybe there'll be some good stuff in there. Maybe there'll be some good stuff in there that, that we can glom onto and get excited about. Maybe there will be. But man, I'm telling you, that would be, as a casual Scream fan, that would get me excited. Because I'm not a hardcore fan. I mean, I've seen the first movie, a handful of times. I've seen the sequels maybe a couple of times. You know what I'm saying? But that would get a casual I'd be like, oh, so this is not just another Scream movie. I mean, it's still a Scream movie, but they've taken it to that extra layer, which I think would be great. It's not going to happen. Don't get your hopes up, folks. It's not going to happen. It's unfortunate, really. Not going to happen. Davey Conway says the cliffhanger idea would keep me invested. I didn't hate the last movie, but it's my least favorite in the series. Well, see, that's my point. I didn't hate the last movie either. I think, look, I mean, as I've said many times on the channel, Scream 5 was a safe Scream movie, but it's something that Radio Silence had to do. In a similar way that what J.J. Abrams did with The Force Awakens, or what Jason Reitman did with Ghostbusters Afterlife. Now, they did it for different reasons. In the sense of The Force Awakens and Ghostbusters Afterlife, it was because Ghostbusters and Star Wars were dead. And when I say dead, I mean people were still very angry at the direction of the Yeah, I know the prequels are loved now, but if you're over the age of 20, okay, or 30, I'll say 30. If you're over the age of 30 and you lived through that era, let's not pretend that everybody loved the Star Wars prequels. They were shat on. The phrase George Lucas ruined my childhood is not something That's because of the prequels. Now, I think that's completely asinine, but that sprung because the prequels were loathed. Generally. That doesn't mean there weren't people that loved them. I'm just saying, generally, Star Wars was dead. And so what was The Force Awakens in terms of, it was some people liked it, some people didn't. I thought it was exactly what it needed to be. I loved it because they delivered something familiar, right? Something safe to earn your trust, to get everybody back on board. And then The Last Jedi fucked it up. Same thing with Ghostbusters Afterlife, right? Ghostbusters was dead. I mean, even though I actually quite liked the 2016 remake, I thought it was all right. It certainly, it was what it was. And it was not in a good place, the franchise. So they deliver a very Ghostbuster feeling safe movie, right? To earn your trust. You don't know what's going to happen here. To earn your trust, to get you back on board. That's what they did. The same thing happened with Scream. Not because, but not because the franchise was dead. No, the franchise was, yes, there hadn't been a movie in over a decade, but it's not like people hated part 4, right? Actually, people loved part 4 over 3. So the franchise was actually in a good place with the fans. But Wes Craven was dead. And he had done the first 4 movies, right? Nobody had done a Scream movie without Wes. So Radio Silence needed to prove and earn the trust from fans. So the principle is the same, but they're doing it for a different reason. They needed to earn your trust to prove that, no, it's okay. We got this. We got this, right? So what did they do? They delivered a safe Scream movie. It's a Scream movie, right? It's safe. It's a safe, but and they did add a bit of, a new element to it with obviously with Sam being able, she's having these delusions of her dad and all that kind of stuff. There is a nice little sort of element there that is solely their own. But in terms of the structure and the execution and the reveal, it's very much Scream. But that's good because they needed to show you that even though Wes is not here, we can still deliver a Scream kind of movie. And they did that. And I thought they did a very good job of it. It didn't reinvent the wheel, but it was a Scream movie. Now, where they're going to take this with this one, I don't know. It's over 2 hours long. So even though the movie may end traditionally, which I suspect it probably does in terms of, it's going to be 2 people there, going to be, whatever the case is. I hope that in that 2 hours, there's enough meat on the bone that takes the Scream franchise and story into new and exciting and properly motivated directions. Again, it doesn't feel shoehorned in or anything like that. It feels organic. I hope that's the case because if it's just a 2-hour Scream movie in New York, I could see myself being disappointed. That doesn't mean the movie's not going to be good. And it's going to be like, yeah, that was fun. That was good. That was action-packed. There was lots of blood. That was good. That was a Scream movie. Okay, fine. That's fine. And if that's what it's going to be, okay. But as I've said many times now, I'd love it just to end like, that'd be so cool. It'd be so cool to see that. So cool to see that. Evil Alex says, Halloween 18 was similar situation. Yep, that's right. That's right. Yeah, bang on. Yep, Halloween 18, absolutely. Yep. You're probably going to see a similar thing with The Exorcist too. Not the Pope's Exorcist, but the one that David Gordon Green is doing. The one that's due out this October. You're probably going to see a similar thing in that. You'll see a movie that is very much The Exorcist. Now it's different. It's still pushing the narrative forward. It's still a sequel. So it's not a remake, but it feels, it's got a lot of, it structurally, narratively, it very much, yes, this is The Exorcist. Because they need to earn your trust. They need to get everybody back on board, And so, these decisions are they're intentional. They're absolutely intentional. So, we'll see how different Scream 6 really is. We'll see if there's never been one like me before, Gail, how true that really is. Or if it's just another line in a trailer, it probably is, just to, make it sound cool, like, ooh, this time, but this time, no, but this time, yeah, okay, we'll see. We shall see. Evil Monsterism says, hey, Dave, what's your favorite and least favorite Spielberg movie? Ooh, great question. My favorite Spielberg movie. Oh, God, it's so hard, dude. I don't know. I mean, Jaws, Duel, Raiders, Ready Player One for me is up there too. I think it's classic. I don't think Ready Player One gets the love that it deserves because we live in a very cynical world now. But I remember going to see that movie in the theater in 2018 and just having a ball with it, thinking to myself, Jesus Christ, the guy, if Ready Player One, now, mind you, the effects obviously would have been different, but I'm just saying, all things considered, if Ready Player One had come out in the 80s, it would be just as much a classic today as Back to the Future, The Goonies. Absolutely. You would have Ready Player One on that 80s shelf. But because we have a blockbuster, well, not at the moment, but we are slowly getting back there. Because there's a blockbuster and that kind of a movie that comes out like every fucking weekend, the novelty wears off. And I remember watching that movie and thinking to myself, Jesus fuck, man, the guy still got it. He goes away and he does movies like Lincoln and Munich and War Horse and there's another one in there. Bridge of Spies, The Post. He's doing a lot of these like not war, but like these biopics or dramas, or, things like that. And then all of a sudden, you think, I guess, the adventure Spielberg is maybe, a thing of the past. And then he comes along and he does Ready Player One. It's like, holy fuck. Like the guy, like the directing in that movie, and the execution and the characters and it's just, and I know it's based on a book, but I'm just saying, like, and I know people say, oh, the book's better. Yeah, okay. Tell me something that, I don't know. When isn't the book better, right? But just looking at the movie and I'm just like that whole scene, the chase and everything. I mean, yes, it's CG, but there's direction behind that. They have to storyboard it. They have to direct it. They have to map it out. You know what I'm saying? Like just the direction of that movie is just stunning. It's just stunning. It's really, really well done, and I'm just like, the dude still fucking got it, man. And I remember turning to my girlfriend and being like, yeah, like if this, like we loved it. We've watched it we watched it in the theater and then we've watched it a couple of times since at home. And it's just it's classic Spielberg, and I don't think it gets the love it deserves because, as I said, we're more of a cynical, world now. And it came out at a time when there's a blockbuster that came out the weekend before and a blockbuster comes out like the week. I mean, it's just the novelty has worn off. That kind of adventure filmmaking is not, it's a dime a dozen now. Right? We've been there, done that, seen it 5 trillion times, in terms of the effects and the adventure, all that kind of stuff. But but nobody does it like Spielberg, man. In my opinion, it's so classic, and just so cool. And but I mean, so that's up there for me, even though that's a fairly recent one. Empire of the Sun is up there. Love that movie. Saving Private Ryan, obviously. Jurassic Park. I mean, Jesus. I even like The Terminal. But I know, I mean, a movie that I'm not crazy on, maybe 1941. Although I think 1941's a lot better than I think people give it credit for. It is actually funny. But 41, I think, would be lesser. Even for me, I'm going to say, even though it's a classic and I recognize it's a classic, I think Close Encounters of the Third Kind is not one that I revisit a lot. It's not because it's a bad, look, it's not a bad movie. It's a great film, but it's not one that I find myself rewatching a lot. And I don't know why. It's kind of strange. I'm not really sure. So I'm not going to say that's that's one that maybe's least favorite because I don't watch it a lot. But yeah, I mean, Jesus, Minority Report is great. I even like his War of the Worlds. I know a lot of people don't like it, or a lot of people like the first half and not the second half. I like it. I think it's fine. I like it. I like it. There's not a lot he's done that I don't like, but yeah, 41 I would say is one I don't watch that often. Even the film Always with Richard Dreyfuss that came out I think 89, right before he did Hook. Always is one that is okay. It's okay, but it's not one of my favorites. And I would say that War Horse is one that I'm, again, it's all right. But it would be like a least favorite for me. And again, I'm not saying that Close Encounters is a least favorite. I just thought I'd mention it because I've always been like, why don't I watch it more often? Because I do like it. I don't know why I don't watch it more often. It's kind of weird. I have to figure that out. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, there's some there for you anyway. Oh yeah, Rosalia says, do you like AI? I do like AI. Yeah, I think AI is actually underrated. I know a lot of people wish that Kubrick could have done AI. I think Kubrick would have done a great job with AI. Some people have criticized AI, Spielberg's AI, because of the warmth that it has. It's not as maybe not as I don't know. Maybe some people feel it's a little too soft. But Spielberg is great with characters. He's great with that emotion. And I do think that emotion with the characters probably would not have been there if Kubrick had done it. Would it have been a better movie? I don't know. It probably would have been a different movie. It might have felt even more dystopian than maybe it already does. I would have loved to have seen Kubrick's version, but I do think Spielberg's version is underrated. I do. I think it's a good movie. All right, 10 minutes to go, folks. 10 minutes to go in the show. Southpaw 82 says, Dave, where do you place James Cameron as a director? To come back and repeat a $2 billion film and now 3 of the top films of all time is insane. Oh, he's one of the great directors of all time. He's one of the great populist directors of all time. Again, it depends on what we're measuring, right? You know what I'm saying? But in terms of populist classical filmmaking, he's one of the best. He's up there with, your Spielbergs and your Lucases. And not that Lucas is a great director. I just mean in terms of like a filmmaker, because he's not just a director. Cameron's a filmmaker. So now when I say populist filmmaking, I'm talking about filmmaking that generally appeals to the masses, right? Classical storytelling. There's usually something in it for everybody. That kind of thing. And Cameron is up there. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yes. I mean, he's one of the greats. He's one of the greats. And, look at his filmography, right? Terminator 2, Aliens, The Abyss, True Lies, Titanic, Avatar, The Way of Water. I mean, he's one of the greats, and he doesn't miss, So yeah, no, he's up there, and he's Canadian. I don't know if you guys knew that or not, but he's Canadian. Let's see. Evil Alex says, Dave, Crystal Skull is the worst Spielberg film, but you could argue because of Lucas, although he was in the other ones too as writer-producer. I don't know if it's his worst movie. I think it's the worst Indiana Jones movie. But, you take Indiana Jones off the title, it's still a competently made, adventure film. Spielberg doesn't have a bad movie, Now, that's my opinion, of course. I think Spielberg has movies that are not as good because the expectations are so high and because he just delivered hit after hit after hit for so many years that when he does a movie it's all right, it really stands out, right? You know what I mean? It really stands out. But I don't know if Spielberg has ever had a bad movie. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think he's ever had like a Geely, like I don't think he's ever, like, yeah, you could say 1941. Some people could say Hook, but I mean, even Spielberg's worst movies are pretty good. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're pretty good, It's because he's a a competently, he knows how to make movies. He's a very good storyteller, a very good filmmaker. So even Spielberg's movies that people might not think are that great would be anybody else's day at the office would be phenomenal. If I made a movie called, I don't know, if I went out there and made Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, it'd be like, wow, holy shit, Dave, you could really, And now again, in terms of the structure and the execution, like, holy shit, But I agree, yes, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is not a very good Indiana Jones movie. In relation to the three that came before it, yes. There's moments, like I think the first half of Skull is better than the second half. But I don't think it didn't have that grit and that feeling. I think, to be honest with you, I think Aliens or Interdimensional Beings was the least of the film's problems. I do. A lot of people like to point to that. Oh, it's because of the aliens. No. I mean, that might play a part in it because you're so used to biblical artifacts and the Nazis, but that's also because it was the 1930s. Well, now we're in the 1950s, and it's, we're post Roswell now, and we're right into the era of science fiction, films and all that kind of stuff. So I'm okay with a science fiction angle to an Indiana Jones movie. I just don't think the way it was, all the green screen and the studio lighting and they had too many people with him. It should have just been him and his son. And then maybe they meet Marion, but Oxley and all these other, and Ray Winstone, get rid of them. Just get rid of them. You don't need them. There's too many people, and the sets and stuff. There was just, there were other things. I think the movie could have been a lot better. Still with aliens or interdimensional beings, still with them. I think the movie could have been a lot better. I'm not saying it would have been great. I'm not saying it would have been a great successor to Last Crusade, but I think it would have been better. I think it could have been better. Yeah. Viva La France says Lincoln was very boring. Yes, I know that the subject matter is kind of boring even for those who are into politics, but it didn't have to be. I didn't find it boring at all. I saw it in the theater, thought it was fantastic. Hey, to each their own, man. To each their own. Maybe you're just not into political biopic dramas, perhaps. I thought it was great. Richie Rich says Forrest Gump. I'm not sure what you're talking about regards to Forrest Gump. That was Robert Zemeckis. He directed Forrest Gump. That wasn't Spielberg. I don't know if that's what you're referring to or not, but Robert Zemeckis, there's a director that I'm disappointed that is in a slump. Now, I haven't seen Pinocchio. I hear bad things about it. I haven't seen it, so I cannot make the judgment call. He also did one, I forget now, it was one where it was like Everybody Was Small or something like that. There was one where he did that. I haven't seen that movie, but that didn't get... He's been in a slump. Robert Zemeckis is a legend. We often forget he is a legendary director. Let's just say these films, okay? Back to the Future. Romancing the Stone. Back to the Future. Back to the Future 2. Back to the Future 3, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Forrest Gump, Contact, Castaway, What Lies Beneath. There are 9 movies that are like, wow. But over the last 20 years, the dude, I don't know what happened. He's lost his mojo. It's Robert fucking Zemeckis. Back to the Future, Forrest Gump, Castaway, What Lies Beneath, Contact, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Like, what happened? What happened, Robert? What happened? It's so disappointing that he's had a string of movies that are, again, there's a few of them that I haven't seen, but a string of movies that a lot of people just don't think are very good at all. So I'm disappointed. I would love to see Robert Zemeckis make a comeback. I would love to see Robert Zemeckis deliver a film again that just blows us all away. I would love to see that. Cody Snyder, my man, one of my great mods, sends in $2. Thanks, Cody. Says, I like Spielberg, but he needs boobs in his movies. Spielberg needs boobs in his movies? I don't think he needs boobs in his movies. Spielberg doesn't need boobs in his movies. Nobody needs boobs in their movies. Yeah, Spielberg, that's funny. Yeah, no, I don't, unless you're just being facetious, but I don't think so. I don't think he needs. Dylan Prell says, have you seen The Young Sherlock Holmes? It's a lot like Temple of Doom, and Spielberg produced it. He's a lot of the has a lot of the familiar, tones of his films. Young Sherlock Holmes. Is it a TV show or a movie? Either way, I haven't seen it, so I'll have to check it out for sure. But I haven't seen it. I have not seen it. Viva La France says, if we're talking best directors as cinephiles, I would say you probably put Kubrick, Fellini, Renoir, and maybe Kurosawa, over Spielberg. But if we're talking pop culture impact, definitely Spielberg. Yeah, again, it depends what we're measuring, right? What are we measuring? That's what it comes down to. I have videos on my channel, and I think I even did a McRae Live on my channel a couple of years ago now, where I talked about this. I believe that the greatest filmmaker of all time is Steven Spielberg. Now, when I say that, in my opinion, you can't just make that statement and not say, well, what do you mean? Because there are a plethora of great filmmakers. So what makes Spielberg the greatest? What are we measuring? Well, what makes him the greatest is he came along at a time, it was called the New Hollywood Era. And he came along at a time when Hollywood was changing in terms of the studio system, how movies were made. Actors were no longer contractually obligated to just star in movies. The contract players kind of thing was on its way out. Things were changing. A lot of things were changing. There was this kind of, rat pack of up and coming new independent, filmmakers, your George Lucases, your Spielbergs, your Martin Scorseses, your Francis Ford Coppolas. You know what I'm saying? And there was a sort of, things were changing. Even, your John Carpenter with horror and that kind of stuff, and your Wes Cravens and that. Things were changing. And Spielberg came along and ushered in the era of the blockbuster with Jaws. Nobody had seen anything like it. Steven Spielberg is arguably the most influential filmmaker of all time. He's the most... As of right now, of course, we'd have to see where James Cameron is. But at least as of before Avatar, The Way of Water, Spielberg was the most commercially successful filmmaker in the history of motion pictures. And he is considered arguably the most influential filmmaker of all time. So a lot of the filmmakers working today, no matter what kind of a filmmaker you are, point to Steven Spielberg as being a gigantic influence. And when we look at sort of how we consumed entertainment, how we consumed movies, the ushering in of home video and VHS and VCRs and all that kind of stuff. And remember, it's not just the movies he directed, it's the movies he produced. Poltergeist, Gremlins, The Goonies, all these classic, Back to the Future, right? Even the movies he didn't direct, but, helped produce and bring to life are bona fide classics. The name Spielberg is basically a synonym for Hollywood. And if Spielberg calls, you take that call. He had and still has the ability to make or break careers. To usher in, especially when he was in his prime, right? Late 70s, all through the 80s, into the 90s, he was the man. He was the man. He was again, to your point, in terms of mainstream pop culture, right? Films, filmmaking, there's been nobody like him. Not even James Cameron. Now, James Cameron is up there, absolutely. But when Spielberg was rising, Cameron was not there. But Spielberg was an influence on Cameron. He was an influence on Nolan, right? He was an influence on a lot of the great directors today. Spielberg was a influence. He is arguably the most influential filmmaker in the history of cinema. Everything pop culture is. We have so much to thank for Spielberg, whether it's Jaws, Indiana Jones. I know Lucas came up with it, but I'm just saying, right? You know, Jaws, Indiana Jones, Back to the Future. He produced it. He ushered it in, right? He hired Robert Zemeckis. You know, all these things, The Goonies and Gremlins and Who Framed Roger Rabbit and just, I mean, so much of the iconic pop culture. Steven Spielberg, Stranger Things is basically just a love letter to Steven Spielberg, you know, and John Carpenter with, you know, the score, and Stephen King, I guess, a bit in there too with the horror. But, you know, it is, Stranger Things is Goonies. I mean, that's what it is. That's what it is. You know what I'm saying? So, you're right. But you will have, you know, stuck up, stuffy cinephiles who like to go beyond, you know, all else, but, get in here and talk about this. That's, of course. I mean, Spielberg's not going to call himself the greatest filmmaker of all time, but we say great filmmaker, right? Because we're talking about not just director, we're talking about the greatest filmmaker of all time, his influence, right? His influence, his name, his impact on the industry at a very crucial and special time. His impact and influence on the motion picture industry as it was changing. The industry would not be what it is today. We wouldn't have the superhero movies and the blockbusters and the Stranger Things and all that. We would not have all that today if it wasn't for Steven Spielberg. And so that's what I measure. So when I look, I go, who's the great, again, it depends what we're measuring. Who's the greatest of all time? And then you look at his movies, right? Not just his influence, but you look at his movies and the incredible storyteller that he is and how many of his movies are in the pop culture zeitgeist. You know, it's, yeah. But yes, are we talking about mainstream, populous, classical storytelling? Yes, of course. We're not talking about 2001 and A Clockwork Orange. You know, no, of course not. Because those don't appeal to everybody. Those are avant-garde, you know, more, you know, and I love those movies. I'm just saying, right? Yes, they are more niche. They are more, absolutely. It depends on what we're measuring, right? Depends on what we're measuring. But when we're talking about Hollywood, right? Hollywood, you know what I'm saying? It's Spielberg, in my opinion. Oh yeah, hey, we're over. I gotta end it now, folks, because these McRae Lives have to be 90 minutes. Don't have to be 90 minutes, but I'd like them to be 90 minutes. All right, listen, that is gonna do it for me here on episode 204 of McRae Live. If you're watching after the fact or you've just tuned in, I'm trying to get these McRae Lives going again. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, we have the Indiegogo campaign for It's Me, Billy Chapter 2 dropping May 1st. So there's a lot of things we're gonna be doing here on the channel to kind of help get the word out there. And as of right now, I would love to be able to do at least one McRae Live a week, at least one a week, maybe every Friday, but we'll see how it goes. It doesn't mean I'm stopping the pre-recorded videos. Doesn't mean I'm stopping the impromptu Q&As. In terms of live streams that have topics and then a Q&A, I'm going to try and designate them to McRae Live episodes. If you want to go back and watch all my other McRae Live episodes through 2020 and 2021, they are there. There's 203 of them. Check them out if you haven't already. That's going to do it for me here on this episode of McRae Live. Thanks to my great moderators, Frank Riker, Tabitha Short, Darren Sands, Chris Baber, Cody Snyder, and Andrew Stevens for doing what you do. I really appreciate it. Thank you to the Super Chat questions that came in today and some of those non-Super Chat questions as well that I was able to get to. Thanks, folks. Really appreciate your time. I'll be back, of course, Monday night on an episode of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. Have a great rest of your Friday. Have a great weekend. And yeah, I will talk to you all soon. Oh, if you want to follow me on social media, you can. There are my links right there. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all my links are in the description. Check them out until your heart's content. And when your heart is content, check them out again. That's going to do it for me. In the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you soon. Cheers.